Great, good morning. And it is 10:39 a.m. and I'd like to call to order the teleconference meeting of the Finance-Auditing Committee of Thursday, December 16th, 2021. Before we begin, please note this meeting is being recorded. And Madam Secretary, can you please call the roll?
Thank you. Starting with Director Cochran.
Here.
Director Giudice. Absent Director Grothbull. Absent Director Hernandez. Absent Director Maston.
Here.
Director Theriault.
Still here.
Vice Chair Fredericks. Absent. Chair Rabbit.
Here.
And President Parr.
Present.
Thank you. You have a quorum. You are not a committee of the whole. Also on the line, you have Director Garbarino and Director Hill. And I'll confirm staff. Dennis Mulligan.
Present.
Joe Wire.
Yes.
Thank you. Ava Bauer-Furbush.
Present.
Thank you. Kim Manolius.
Aye.
Steve Miller.
Here, good morning.
Thank you. Mona Babauta. Mona Babauta is not there. Jim Swindler.
Present.
Thank you. And Kelly Hopper.
Present.
Thank you. That confirms staff on the line.
Great, thank you very much. Once again, just want to remind everyone to mute their phones until the staff's presentations, and remember to unmute when we open it up for director's discussion. I'll be asking for questions, comments, and/or concerns on the item. If there are any, the secretary or I will call on you accordingly. And of course, after the discussion, we will ask for any public comment before moving on. Please follow along by referring to the page numbers located in the bottom right corner of your meeting packet. And with that, Madam Secretary, can you please introduce the first item?
Thank you, Chair Rabbit. I'd also like to note that Director Fredericks has rejoined the call, so welcome, Director Fredericks. I'll note you on the roll call. Item number 3 is ratification of previous actions by the Auditor Controller. The packet of commitments, ratifications, and investments before you and begins on page 5. Ms. Murphy is still on leave, and Auditor Controller Joseph Wire is available to answer any questions concerning the report.
That is great. We still wish Ms. Murphy all the best with the new child. So, are there any questions, comments, or concerns?
Well, Director Rabbit, I have a inquiry. Joe can probably answer it. Apparently, they're going to increase the interest rates. Is that has that happened, or anything going on with the feds?
As of yet, that's not heard if it's going to happen. I mean, the market, if I think on look at page 10, the market's showing that they're expecting nothing breaking new, but something. The rates have not increased in the last month, but over the last year, of course, they've gone up. In the longer term, they're still incredibly low. If you look at that chart on page 10, a 5-year note is getting you a percent, 16, so 116 basis points. It's still extremely low, but it is obviously it's up from where it was, which was almost nothing, a year ago. I think the last thing that we heard was every time you take a step forward, a new blast of information comes out and people get worried about the economy, COVID, whatever, people's expectations. I think, and that's why Leslie's staff has included on page 11 and page 12, you've got some information about the consumer price index going up, prices being higher, but also on page 12, you have information about consumer sentiment and expectations is lower. And I think that's a sign that makes economists and the market somewhat jittery when they get expectations are lower and the consumer may think things are going to be worse in the future. But none of those are the other shoe dropping, so to speak. They're just concerns at this point. And I think that's why you've seen the market draw back in some places these last months compared to what it was shooting up throughout the first 3 quarters of the year.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Sure.
Are there any other questions, comments, or concerns for Mr. Wire on item number 3? I do appreciate that question, Director Cochran. I think it just seems to be a little bit of a strange time still going forward, so obviously something to continue to monitor. So that concludes the discussion on this item, and before we take our vote to accept this item, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on item 3?
If you give me 1 second to check, I didn't get a notification from anyone that there was any speakers, but just in case somebody else has joined since we started and returned to the line, if you could give me 1 second.
Right.
Thank you. We have no speakers under this item.
Okay, great. Can I have a motion to, on item 3, to ratify the previous investments, authorize investments, and accept the investment report?
Also move, Director.
All right.
We had I believe we had a motion in there, and I believe we had a second.
Correct.
And with that, Madam Secretary, can you please call a roll call?
Thank you. Voting on item number 3, and since we are only a committee, I will start with Director Cochran.
Yes.
Yes. Director Giudice is absent. Director Grosbol is absent in return. Director Hernandez is absent. Director Maston.
Aye.
Thank you. Director Tirio.
Yes.
Vice Chair Fredericks.
Yes.
Chair Rabbit.
Aye.
Aye. And President Parr.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you all very much. We'll continue then to item number 6, since there are no actions under items 4 and 5. Agenda item 6 is to authorize the extension of contract number 2018B05, consultants to provide technical support for toll operations and related actions. The staff report starts on page 25, and Joe Wire is going to present this report. Joe, go ahead.
Thank you to the chair and to the board. This item is in front of you as a request to extend the contract with a bench of technical consultants. That the district originally hired back in 2018. These consultants support the current toll system that's collecting tolls in the lanes today. They also support the implementation of the interim toll system, and they also support the final implementation of the gantry-based open road tolling collection system, which is in the planning stages as we speak. So they have a variety of tasks. Their work is done on a task order basis. We contract out with them whenever a situation arises that we need their support. The original contract is coming to an end, and we would like, the request is to extend that contract through the end of 2023. So that's approximately 2 years from today. And the desire to have an extension rather than going out for a new RFP is that the district has, over the last 4 years, invested in a number of these firms by providing them with work here at the district. And that work has led them to be knowledgeable and trained in the staff that we have here at the district, how we do our business, what our systems are like, the technology behind our systems, the intricacies of those technologies and how they relate to our contractors, for example, Conduit, who processes our transactions downstream. These consultants have learned, and Capsch, the contractor who works on several of our systems. These contractors have learned about those, these consultants have learned about those contractors and acquired information that we believe has been valuable to us, and we would rather not start over. We think it'd be expensive and it would add a number of more time to our projects if we were to do that. The extension would avoid that. There is one, the extension is for we believe, up to $2.6 million over these last 2 years. with approximately $250,000 of that allocated. The request is to allocate that to one of our capital projects, and that's because we've been funding the work on our current toll system out of the capital project, and so that we need to put some of this budget authority in that capital project. And if and at the end of this at the end of the current ongoing projects, the district would then look at putting out an RFP to create a new bench going forward. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Great, thanks, Joe. Does anyone have any questions for Joe on this particular item? You explained it so well, Joe. No questions. That concludes the discussion on the item. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on item number 6, Madam Secretary?
We have no speakers under item number 6.
Great, I'll bring it back to my colleagues, and may I have a motion on item number 6 to authorize the extension of the associated contract?
I will move the item. Cochran.
I'll second it. Fredericks.
Great, thank you very much. Madam Secretary, can you please call the vote?
Thank you. We're voting on item number 6 with a first from Director Cochran and a second from the Vice Chair Fredericks. Starting with Director Cochran.
Yes.
Director Giudice. Absent. Director Grothbull. Absent. Director Hernandez. Absent. Director Mastin.
Aye.
Aye. Director Theriault.
Yes.
Vice Chair Fredericks.
Yes.
Chair Rabbit.
Aye.
Aye. And President Parr.
Aye.
Thank you. You have a unanimous vote. You have 6 ayes.
Great, thank you very much. Someone's having fun somewhere. I wish I was there as well. With that, the motion passes, and we'll move on to agenda item number 7 to authorize the execution of the 3rd amendment to the parking services agreement with Park Mobile USA Inc. and Park Mobile Group BV relative to contract number 2014 FT19, collection of parking fees at Larkspur Ferry Terminal. The staff report starts on page 29, and the auditor controller will also present this report. So, Joe, please do.
Thank you, Chair, and to the board. This is another a contract extension. In this particular case, the circumstances are different. The district has been doing business with Park Mobile, as mentioned, since the original contract in 2014. They have a very successful program that collects parking fees from the Larkspur Ferry Terminal. Our customers are used to it and have been using it very successfully for a number of years. The district, prior to the pandemic, the district was examining a way of improving the service and even looked to going to a different vendor. Once the pandemic hit, the priority for that moved away to the background. We don't think the pandemic, given that the pandemic is still ongoing, we think an extension of the existing service is still the best path forward for the district. And at the time that our district customers return, that then the district can go back to looking at whether this particular system is one we should continue going forward, or if we should look for a different system. But given the low demand at this point in time, it made sense to keep a product that our customers are comfortable with, and so this extension is for yet another year. And if I have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Appreciate that, Joe. The fact that we were looking for improvements or another vendor, does that indicate shortcomings in the existing program? And is it something that we can work with the vendor that we have in contract to rectify?
I would say not necessarily shortcomings. We were looking at a way of incorporating this with our parking lots that we have in San Francisco that are much smaller. And so that was one interest to do that. And then we were looking at some different technology that might be easier for us on the district's end to deal with and potentially be less expensive over time. All of those are improvements, but not necessarily saying that the system wasn't working, it wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. it was just a way of, our intention is to continually improve. Once we've learned how to do something, we look for ways to improve it. So I think I would put the desire more in those parameters rather than a parameter to say that somehow the park mobile system was not adequately doing the job. And I think for all intents and purposes, it is adequately doing the job. And under this particular scenario now, with with a tenth of the number of parkers that we've had before, it's more than adequately doing the job to get us through this time period.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you, Joe, for that clarification too. Any questions, comments, or concerns from directors on item number 7? Not hearing any. How about anyone from the public, Madam Secretary?
We have no speakers on item number 7.
Okay. Is there, may I have a motion to approve item number 7 to authorize the execution of the third amendment to the parking services agreement?
I will move that, Director Fredericks.
And a second by?
I'll second
it. And Madam Secretary, could you please call the roll?
Thank you. We're voting on item number 7, and we're going to start with Director Cochran.
Yes.
Yes. Director Giudice. Absent. Director Grosboll. Absent. Director Hernandez. Absent. Director Maston.
Aye.
Director Theriault.
Yes.
Vice Chair Fredericks.
Yes.
Chair Rabbit.
Aye.
And President Barr.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you all very much. Next on the agenda is item number 8, which is the status report for fiscal year 2022 budget. That report begins on page 31. And Joe, go ahead with your report.
Thank you, and thanks again for the opportunity. This report is, as mentioned, the monthly report to make sure that we keep our eyes on balancing the budget as we go forward. And this report will look is very similar to the one you saw last month. We are, if you turn to page 33, which is the actual spreadsheet that records our balance. If you look, again, it shows that with the federal funding that the district either has received or is expected to receive, we will be able to balance this budget and have some left over going into the next year, next fiscal year. This chart on line 2, you can see, does include using ARP funds from the second tranche, which the district has been allocated but has not received. It is being part of the legal proceedings between the Department of Labor, the ATU, and the state of California. And they're actually having a hearing today with the judge, and hopefully we'll get some sort of a notice of what's happening as early as the beginning of next week. If in fact the district is allowed to have these funds processed, it will push forward as quickly as possible. If not, we'll keep you posted on that PEPRA legal process. And then the charts, the regular charts are attached afterwards, which are updated monthly. And that's section 4, where we update tolls and fares, and they are running about similar to what we have seen in the previous few months. So we've had a relatively steady state lately, and I'll mention that in the next item. So if there's any questions on this one, I'm happy to take them.
Thanks, Joe. Anyone have any questions for Joe on this particular item? Not hearing any. Madam Secretary, is there anyone from the public on this particular item?
We do. We have one speaker on this item. Mr. Pilpel would like to speak today. And in a second, I'm going to connect the call.
Great.
David, are you there? David? Mr.
Hello?
Pilpel.
Can you hear me now?
There you go. We can hear you now.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Too many stars. Okay, sorry, I got distracted there for a second. This was also covered in the first section of the general manager's report for tomorrow. So can I assume that the ARP1 allocation of 57.7 million has been received by the district, but the ARP2 43.9 million has not. And again, this may have been covered a moment ago, but in the event that that second 43.9 million in ARP2 money is not released before June 30th of 2022, is there yet, or should there be a contingency plan to cover that? To cover the gap of where is it here? The gap of 23.7 million plus or minus in the current year budget, that portion of the ARP2 money that was planned to be used in fiscal 21-22, because that would be a pretty significant reduction in expenses or increase in revenue that would be needed in the second 6 months of the fiscal year. So just wanted to raise that. If that was already covered when I was distracted, then I apologize. And I think that's it for me for today. Thanks very much.
Thanks, David. That's actually a great question. And I'll turn to Joe, if you could talk about what's been received and what's outstanding.
Yes, glad to. The 57 million, the first tranche has been received, and the second tranche of the 42 million is outstanding. That is the one we are definitely waiting for. I think as long as the district, staff and board is convinced that it's a delay and not somehow that money would no longer be able to be received by the district. If it was just a delay, I think the recommendation from your staff would be that you would fund this out of your emergency and operating reserves, and that you would then wait the months that it would take to receive the grant funds. I think that's the way that's our contingency plan at this point. If for some reason there was ever any belief that this money would never materialize, then of course we would have to make a very different assessment and provide a different recommendation to the board. But right now, it's believed that of course this has been delayed as we speak, and that if it's delayed a little more, we would be able to wait that out.
I appreciate that very much. And historically, albeit a relatively short time period, that has been the case. That it's really a delay of receipt of the funds, not and it's going to be hard to believe that California would not be able to receive the infrastructure or those funds going forward. So do appreciate that. Any of my colleagues have any other questions, comments, or concerns? Then that concludes the discussion on this item. I think no action is required for this item. So we'll move on to item number 9. We have a monthly review of the Golden Gate Bridge, traffic tolls, and bus and ferry transit patronage and fares. That's on page 41. Mr. Wire will once again present this item, as well as 10A, which is the monthly statement of revenue and expenses, and that's on page 49, and 10B, the monthly statement of capital programs and expenditures, and that's on page 59. So go ahead, Joe.
Thank you very much, to the chair. And I will just touch on these. Next month, January is our we'll have 6 months worth of data. So we'll take a little deeper dive into these reports when we come back in January. But I'll just touch on them here, but if there are questions, feel free to ask. The first thing on page, if you turn to page 43, that has the table of data, and I think the most interesting piece of information on that particular table is the third column from the right, and that's the actual funds the district is receiving from the bridge in the top, the bus in the middle, and the ferry in the bottom. And if you look month to month, they're relatively constant, and that's just an important thing to keep in mind. The bridge tolls do go down a little bit, and that is actually constant in quotes in its own way, because the district always is a cyclical manner. It has higher bridge traffic in the summer times and the nicer weather, lower bridge traffic in the winter and the colder winter, darker months. People tend to take less recreational trips over the bridge, and we notice it's not a huge difference, but it is a difference. Then bus and ferries, you can see a relatively steady ferry starting to drop off, which is also a normal part of our business in the later winter months of our business. Unfortunately, of course, these bus and ferry numbers and bridge numbers are all lower than what they were pre-COVID. Bridge is about 80 to 85%, bus about 70%, 30%, and ferry little below 20%. There's no questions on that. I would move on to number 9, which, as mentioned, was on page. Just get that page number for you. Page 49. And the important point to take out of on page 49, we list the summary of the financials, and then the specific reports with the line items are following the pages behind page 49. This current year actual revenues are above current year actual expenses because we have received and have allocated to the first 4 months of the year $19 million in federal bailout funds. If it wasn't for that, the district wouldn't be showing almost $8 million revenues over expenses. It would be showing about a $12 million revenues under expenses. So we're averaging about three plus million a month in our expenses being greater than our revenues, without, of course, the federal funds. Now, of course, we have the federal funds for now, so we're able to do that, and we want those to stretch far enough to where our own operational income closes that gap as we go forward. And then on page 59 is the capital summary, and it just shows that through the first 4 months we've allocated about 26% of our expenditures have come through so far, which is roughly normal for this time of year. And as I mentioned, next month in January we'll take a deeper look at these 3 reports, but I'm happy to answer any questions on any of them for today.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Anyone have any questions, comments, concerns for Joe on 9, 10A, or 10B? Not hearing any. Is there anyone from the public on this one?
We have no speakers on items 9, 10A, or 10B.
Thank you very much. So that concludes the discussion on these items. There's no actions required on those. And with that, at this time, we'll move on to item number 11 on the agenda, which is closed session. Before we do that, I want to thank everyone for being patient during today's meeting. Once again, we'll be placing the public on hold for the duration of this item, and we'll reconnect the call after our closed session. Mr. Manilius, can you please take us into closed session?
Of course, Chair Abbott. Thanks very much. At this time, the committee will go into closed session for a conference with legal counsel regarding 3 pieces of existing litigation. They are listed on the agenda, but it's with regard to Manuel Duque, David Matthews, and Fred Williams versus Golden Gate Bridge Highway and Transportation District.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. We are back in open session.
Great. And Attorney Manilius, can you please provide your closed session report out?
Thank you, Chair Abbott. Of course. The committee met in closed session for a conference with legal counsel about existing litigation as noted on the agenda. And for all 3 matters, the committee gave counsel appropriate guidance on how to proceed in the matters.
Great. Thank you, Kim. Madam Secretary, is there anyone for public comment or wishing to speak to the committee under item 12?
We do have Shane Weinstein. He's rejoined our call, and he would like to speak under public comment. We moved too fast in the last meeting, and unfortunately he was cut off. So I'd like to invite him back so he can make his comments. Shane, are you there?
Right.
Yeah, I am. Can you?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. You know, barring the agenda item, I just, to the directors, even to staff at this point, I mean, there really is a mass exodus going on. We've lost, 80 people since March of 2020, and we're starting to build up this huge kind of management system. I understand that, ZEB buses are important and all of those things are. I don't know that the timing was proper, but barring that, and if that moves, and I respect everyone's decision, But please, please, please pay attention to the amount of people that are leaving this place right now. That class of 6 became, a class of 2. There's day off work happening every single day now. And if we're concerned about pension spiking like the district is, we got to staff up. I understand the need is there to staff up, and I think in those particular areas, safety, hiring, training, I think that that's the place that we need to beef up right away. We don't even have the operators, and I really, really hope that staff will focus on the people who are here now because they're leaving. And please, directors, understand that that is the case. I appreciate your time and letting me back in. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That concludes public comment.
Thanks, Shane. We want to work with you on all those issues that you brought forward. I know that's true of all the directors and staff as well. So I appreciate you stating that again. With that takes us to the end of our agenda. So may I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved, Director Chair.
So moved.
I think we had a motion and a second in there.
Yeah.
Sure.
And hearing no objections, that concludes the meeting of the Finance Auditing Committee. Thank you, colleagues, and the time is 11:27, and we shall see you all or hear you all tomorrow.